Hey, Spooksters, and welcome back to another episode here on Three Spooked Girls. My name is Tara, and as always, I'm here with my girlfriend, Jessica.
Hello.
Hello. And today we are discussing the very highly requested, as you can see by Jessica's background, Quiet on the Set today. And when 5 drops, we will watch it and get it out ASAP.
Mhm.
I don't remember what day of the week. I know it comes out on like the 7th of April, but I don't know
That's a
the day of the
Sunday.
week. It's a Sunday. We could get it up like that Thursday. I also thought like we could always push it to like Tuesday and have it come out for them sooner too, just depending, I guess, on what our schedules look like. We will be on top of shit
Yes.
for once in our life.
It will probably be like we will watch it knowing the two of us will probably start it at
Mhm.
the same time and then be like, let's just go record it because we've done that in the
Mhm.
past. So,
Oh yeah, for sure. And it's like good with these because then it's fresh. Like I
Mhm.
woke up super early this morning, so I rewatched all of them.
I did too because I had to, I was like crying during one part and I was like, get your shit together, Jessica. And I was like, yeah, it was, yeah. But can
See,
I
I
just
was
say right now, your hair looks so purple and so pretty. I know that
oh,
just for
thank
everyone,
you.
if you haven't noticed that Tara's hair is
It's
purple,
purple
it's
now.
so pretty.
It's purple now.
Loves it.
Thank you. Oh, also, I have to say, I have been very, very sick. So, if you're new, my voice is normally not this like gravelly, but it's gonna be for these episodes because we're recording both back to back.
I was like, wow, it's not just me having to say that for once. Be like,
I
my
know.
voice
I
is gone.
literally, it's allergies and this cold that will not let up. I am very medicated and I have a Celsius. So there we go.
Oh.
Perfect. But if you are new here and you're not hanging out with us on social media, find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Threads with the handle at Three Spooked Girls. We also have our Facebook group that y'all should come join. That is Three Spooked Girls Official. It's a lot of fun and we love it. Now, this lighting is like, okay, so for YouTube people, I swear to God, this side is just as purple as this side. It's just, I've got shitty lighting. So just deal with it. Because also, you can't see the fucking windows right here. So it's giving me extra light. Normally, we don't have
Oh
this problem.
yeah, that's true.
It's fine.
I do wish my hair could be purple. It can't be purple.
You can live through me because mine
I
is
know.
very, very purple now.
Every time Tara does a vivid color, I'm like, yes. And I'm like, I'm over here like it has to look natural. Like we were having a discussion the other day whether we could go gray or silver at work. And
Mm,
they're like, it's like
it's very borderline.
yeah, because like
Yeah,
silver, like yes, it happens naturally, but like
you could
not
tell.
like metallic silver, but
Yeah.
also like if my hair went from this to silver, they'd be like, that wasn't natural. But also like this is
Mhm.
the color of my hair normally, and this is what I color
Mhm.
it to. And I'm
Yeah.
having the existential crisis of whether I should continue blonde or go dark, and which is why my hair has so much growth because I can't make the decision.
Let us know what
Put in
Jessica
the
should do.
comments. Help me out.
Oh God. On that note, if you would like to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/Three Spooked Girls. For as little as $1, you get one bonus episode a month. 5 and up get video content when we have extra stuffs. Like when we do our oh my God, I almost called it Slaughters. No, our Vital Conversation series and just extra fun stuff over there. You also get ad-free episodes the day before. If you are on TikTok or Instagram, go check those out. In the show notes, we have a link tree. I'm on TikTok. I don't know what's happening with TikTok, but go follow us on Instagram. If you follow the show, our handles are in the bio. And with that, we're gonna just go ahead and get into this. So I feel like everybody knows what this is / has
Mhm.
watched it. But if you don't, please look up the trigger warnings on this because it is very, very heavy. So, yeah. It kind of starts off with telling us about Dan Schneider. And honestly, it's funny because I was like, this guy looks so familiar, but I didn't realize
Mhm.
he also acted on top of creating shows. He's actually from Memphis and he was that like stereotypical like class clown. He was voted most spirited out of his school and things like that. He was likable, people liked him. When he got into his late teens after high school, he decided to give it a shot with some acting. So he did a couple shows during the 80s. He did Making the Grade, Better Off Dead, Hot Resort, Happy Together, and The Big Picture. Those were all like very minimal roles, and what actually got him his break essentially was Head of the Class, which was a sitcom not only he was on, but he like co-wrote some episodes or co-wrote on
Mhm.
it type of thing. And that ran from 86 to 91. So that actually is like decently long,
That's a
you
big
know.
run for,
That's a
like,
big
a
run for a sitcom.
yeah, it was, like, a really big show, but then it wasn't a really big like, I don't know. It was, like, popular in some genres or some locations, but I don't think it was necessarily, like, mass produced
Mhm.
everywhere.
So from that show is when he made the transition to Nickelodeon, and he came on to write the pilot of All That, which came out in 1994. And if you are unfamiliar with what All That is, they describe it best. Basically, it was a kid SNL. It was a skit show, comedy show with children.
And it was on Saturday nights.
And it was on Saturday nights, and it
Mm.
was very, very popular with us millennials and a little bit older kids. So, yeah, it was like it's so iconic. It's just so iconic, and I feel like a lot of us that grew up, like, our adolescence in the 90s, like, that
Mm.
was just such a pillar in
Oh,
entertainment for us.
for sure. It was, like, every single week because I think on Saturday nights, like so there was, like, Nick, and then they're, like I don't know if you guys remember, there's, like, Nick at Night, but those were, like, old shows that they would rerun. But then on Saturday nights, they would do something called SNICK, and I don't know what it stood for. I don't know,
Mhm.
it was, like, Saturday Nickelodeon, but it was,
Yeah.
like, they had all of these different shows, and, like, All That was one of them, and then they had, like, Roundhouse. Are You Afraid of the Dark was, like I think the new
Mhm.
episodes came out on Saturday
Mhm.
nights. I can't really remember, but it
Yeah.
was, like, I couldn't wait, like, my parents would be watching whatever they watched on Saturday nights, but then, like except for, like, we'd have to have family time and watch Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman because it was a religious I don't fucking care, it was a weird
Mhm.
show. I would be so excited to watch All That because my, like, stepbrother and stepsister were allowed to watch, like, the real SNL. So this
Mhm.
felt really special to me that I could watch something that was specifically for kids.
Yeah, yeah. And it was a good show.
Oh,
I
it was
won't
hilarious.
discount that. It was a great show. I was obsessed.
If you pay attention to our Vital Conversations, every single time I start it, I lean in and go, "Vital Conversations for your everyday life." Because Lori Beth, she had a show or she had a segment that was like it was part of it. It's so ingrained into me that, like, I hear Vital Conversations or Vital whatever.
And it makes you think of that.
It was
Yeah.
vital information for your everyday life. That's what it was. And
Mm.
I was like, "This is so ingrained into me that I, like, now have my own platform, and I'm going to integrate it into my platform."
I love this. So early on, he absolutely had favorites. And you will learn that you wanted to be one of his favorites, or else life kind of sucked for you if you didn't get fired. So his initial golden child in the early days of his Nickelodeon career was Katrina Johnson, and she's in the doc and talks quite a bit this first episode. He almost, to me, it almost sounded like he kind of took that position of like a manager because he would go to like her auditions, her callbacks, like all he would go to everything. He was heavily, heavily involved.
He was definitely, like, the mentor of her, like,
Mhm.
and that's how she describes it, which is so
Yeah.
interesting because, like, when I first did the watch through,
Mhm.
until she started talking, and I was like, "Who is this chick?" Like, I don't know her, and then they, like, flash back to
Showed
who she
her.
was on the show, and I was like, "Oh." She was, like, on All That, and then, like, she had a very, very, like I think she was in Mean Girls, like, I think she was the girl in the bathroom.
Oh, I have no idea.
I think, like, the one where he's like, "Danny DeVito, I love your work." Like, I think that was her, like, if I'm remembering correctly, and then I don't know what else she did. Now
Oh, I'll tell you. We'll
I'm
get
gonna
there.
Google.
At first, Dan was actually a great showrunner to have. They said the sets were fun. He acted like a big kid. They joked around a lot. They would poke fun at each other, but it was very light. It wasn't malicious at this point. Well, things took a turn pretty quickly because this show took the fuck off.
It's
So we
true.
hear from another castmate named Leon. And Leon did a bunch of sketches too. The one that's the most problematic that comes up first is he did a sketch where he was a character called Captain Big Nose.
Oh,
And
no,
there
poor
was
Captain Big Nose.
lots of problems with this. So that's a superhero. And basically, he had this giant prosthetic nose on. And then he also had noses on like his shoulders, like where shoulder pads would be, but
Mhm. They look
boy
like
parts.
penises.
I feel like this was probably the start of a theme we will see throughout this. There's a lot of scenes that look like, I think we're just gonna say fuck it and go for it, that look like cum shots if you watch
Yes.
porn.
Mhm.
Because this character would like sneeze and then obviously like this nasty snot would come out and hit people in the
Mhm.
face. Like it was a teacher in one of the examples or a librarian or some shit that they showed. People didn't really think about it at first. They were just kind of like, oh, that's interesting. But they're like,
I
well, we're
think
adults.
I think every adult in the room thought it, and then
Yeah.
every kid in the room thought it was funny because it's
Yes.
gross, and, like, when you're young, gross is funny. We know that, like, in different things, like, in different Disney movies, like, in The Little Mermaid, the priest gets a boner, like, we know that kinda stuff. This is so much different than that because that happened so quickly, if you weren't paying attention, you didn't see it,
Hmm.
but, like, this was, like, a woman, it was always a girl, was, like, sitting there, and she was getting, like, this huge amount of goo shot onto her face, and then she's just sitting there, and if you watch porn, that's what happens. A girl gets shot in the face, and then she just sits there with shit on her face,
Yeah.
and it was like, everyone's laughing, and the kids are laughing along because they don't know any better.
Well, no, like a child shouldn't know what that is,
Right, and
you know?
that's
And
a whole
that's
other
why
problem.
he thought he could get away with it.
Mhm.
Let's just be real. What was interesting in this part was, like I said, we heard a lot from Katrina, and we start to hear what it was like to be phased out.
Right.
Because she was on the show for quite a while. She was getting older. She went through puberty on the show. Her parents actually got a call from Dan saying that Katrina's getting too fat. We already have a fat one.
Mhm.
I don't remember how old she said she was. I think she was like a tween.
Yeah.
You're in your formative years. You fucking hear this. She's like, I can still hear this clear as day today in my head. I can still hear it. And
Mhm.
that's something that would fucking stick with you. Absolutely.
Oh, for
And
sure.
not unfortunately, because it's just fucking human biology, but she did go through puberty shortly after this. And of course, she became more developed and was looking
Mhm.
more like a woman versus a child. So that became a problem because to them, this is their reasoning, not mine. This was a children's show. She didn't look like a kid, so they needed to start scooting her out. Katrina found her own replacement on accident.
Oh, when I was watching that, I was like, "Oh, shit." She was just like, "Hello, enter in the new me," and I was like, "Oh,
Uh-huh.
poor Katrina." She was just trying to bring out a new castmate because she thought the
Mhm.
girl was funny.
Yep. So there is this comedy club called the Laugh Factory, and they do workshops and stuff. And this is where she found and met Amanda Bynes. And Amanda Bynes was extremely young. She was like 9 or 10. And she was like, oh my God, she is so fucking funny. So she was like, Dan and the other co producer, Brian Robbins, she was like, you guys need to come down here. You guys need to check this out. She would be a great addition to the cast. Well, Dan and him knew right away this girl has a fuck ton of talent, especially for her age, because she did like a bit about like a pimple and all this stuff. And she was 10 years
Mhm.
old. And it's like, of course, most 10-year-olds, don't have pimples or really know much about them. But it was like, she was
Typically in
so
their
funny.
nose.
Yeah, she said it was in her nose. It was so funny. And she very much leaned into physical comedy, like slapstick comedy. And they
Mhm.
loved that because that was like, that fit in perfect for all that and Nickelodeon at the time.
Right.
So Amanda Bynes now joins the cast, and her dad and him get really, really close because they're trying to put Amanda into stardom because
Mhm.
as Katrina was being pushed out, Amanda was coming in and becoming Dan's favorite just because he knew like what talent and what potential she had. So of course he's going to run with that because at this time he only has all that. The other castmates that are on this, they noticed that too. He did not hide that he had favorites and had like people he was like meh about.
Right.
This was no secret. And they would say that I think it was Leon that said it. There was times where like Amanda was gone, and that was because she was with Dan and they were writing sketches, like they were strategizing stuff, with Dan and her dad and all this shit. They became very close very quickly. And something that was brought up fairly quickly on this was the fact that's like such a huge red flag. But I understand why they were just like, oh, okay. They did not like having parents be super hands-on and involved. I feel like the only way Amanda's dad was able to like weasel his way in was because like he got buddy with Dan real quick.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, Katrina kind of describes Amanda's relationship with her dad is that Amanda's dad treated her like a wind-up doll, like go perform. And I
Yeah.
think it's
I
that
know that
dollar
life.
sign over integrity type thing where like Amanda is probably the whole income of her family. So her dad is maybe not liking it, but he's being complicit in it because it just means more money and more revenue coming in. And the closer he is to Dan, the more he can kind of like craft what Amanda's doing. Cause I don't really remember Amanda having having a ton of like degrading type of things happen to her.
Right. And I
And
think that had to do with her parents being right fucking there. Cause even her mom too was like super involved and super hands-on. Cause it's like the dad, got in and then it's like, oh, okay, then, fucking come on,
they
wife,
were a team.
Yeah,
It's like a
exactly.
parenting duo. And
Right.
most kids had like a parent on set.
Like a green
Yeah,
room, waiting room. They weren't like with the kids. So like
they were supposed to be.
we'll get into who's taking them to set in a little bit. I have some stuff. We'll
Yeah.
get into that later. But basically, things are going great. Amanda's doing awesome. She's, having all these different things on all that. I used to watch all of it. So I like when I was seeing the clips in this, I was like, oh my God, I remember this shit. Like when she was the Judge Judy type of character and
Oh my God,
and all
I loved
that.
it. Bring in the
Um,
lobsters.
yeah. So when this started happening, Katrina was accepting like, oh shit, my time is up. I need to. She probably wanted to part ways on good terms in case, I don't know, in case she wanted to do anything in the future, probably leave. You don't want to burn bridges, especially with somebody like Dan. If you were on his good side, you wanted to keep it that way. So she went to college. She left. That's what she did. We're going to have more females in here. And you know what? These bitches are fucking boss ass bitches because everybody else was too scared to come talk. So we have his two female writers that he had early on. This was Christy Stratton and Jenny Kilgan. Now, at this time that Katrina was leaving, oh God, I have to mention too. So, okay, Katrina left for college, right? At this time, Dan was working on creating The Amanda Show. But the fucked up thing is, originally, it was going to be The Katrina Johnson Show or whatever her last name is.
Yeah.
And someone like she knew while she was gone at college was like, oh my God, have you watched The Amanda Show? And then she was like, damn, I was right. I did get fucking replaced. Like, that was supposed to be me.
I think about like the Jeanette McCurdy book too. How like she talks about how like when she was on iCarly, she was closer to Dan and Dan kept, or the creator, which we know is Dan, would promise her own show. And then she got fucking like, not that it was a bad thing, but like she got the Sam and Cat came out. It wasn't just the Sam show.
Right. Yeah.
He has a history of this.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And Christy had said in her interview, working for Dan was like being in an abusive relationship, which you will see why in a second. Jenny, the other writer, basically like put herself out there to hopefully get considered to become a writer for Dan because he was becoming the it producer to work for or show, well, he wasn't technically a show creator just yet, not till Amanda Show, but people wanted to work for him, especially because it's like, it's fucking Nickelodeon. Like, look how popular it is.
And just to kind of like for a young audience who might not know, when we were kids, you literally had, they talk about this in the documentary, you had two choices. You had Nickelodeon or Disney. You did not have Netflix. You didn't have all of that. You could rent movies, but you'd have to physically go somewhere and get them.
Oh yeah, we didn't have streaming service, obviously.
Right.
We barely had the internet.
Right. So like our options were so fucking limited. So it was like, you knew those two were huge rivals. And so if Dan Schneider is pulling in the audience, they're going to be like, hell yeah, pick Dan Schneider.
Well, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't matter that he's problematic.
They didn't know that. That's the thing. They didn't know that. Because he did not necessarily, okay, the favoritism thing is obviously problematic.
Right.
But what he escalates to,
oh yeah,
very different because it was like, I'm sure he was just so ecstatic to get his dream to be there. Why would they say it was a positive experience at first if it wasn't at this point? Because they spill all the other tea. You know what I mean?
I definitely think it was like the more he gained in popularity, it was like the power went to his head and he was like, I'm fucking unstoppable. I'm Dan Schneider.
Yeah. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
So let's start out what problematic shit that Christy and Jenny went through. So first of all, they fucking split one salary between these two women.
Right. That's
and it
insane.
Not that this would be okay in any fucking world, but, like, it wasn't like their budget was so tight, so that's the only choice they had because throughout their time there, he hired other men as writers and stuff. They were the only 2 female writers, and they got salaries. They got higher salaries and stuff like
Mhm.
that. So they were getting, like, basically working for free,
A lot
essentially.
of it.
And it was the same thing. Christy said, like, when we were on Paramount, the Paramount lot, like, it was so cool. It was I don't know about Jenny, but I know it was Christy's, like, first, like, in the industry, like, job,
Oh,
and
yeah,
I
she
I
was
think
temping before.
yeah, she was a temp. I think Jenny was, like, in the scene because obviously, like, that's how she knew to
Mhm.
get her stuff to Dan's assistant, and then the assistant was like, "Oh my god, this is funny," and put her stuff on top. And Dan said to them and the other male writers in the room that he didn't think women were funny. And he also asked them, "Do you mind if I refer to you guys as the girls? Because, you're the 2 women on our team." And
Mhm.
they're just like, "Oh, okay." I mean, like, and honestly, it's kind of like, "Oh, okay, sure. Yeah, whatever. I don't care." Like,
I
you
didn't
know what I
think it was
mean?
that
It wasn't anything
problematic.
bad. No. The
No.
problematic part of it was and they learned very quickly because they were like, "Yeah, sure, whatever, that's cool." He
Mhm.
was like, "Oh, good. I can't stand girls who are uptight about things like that." And Jenny was like, "I knew right then that, like, when he asked you something, you better have the right answer, and thank fuck we had the right answer."
Right.
I'm like, "Good." Not good
And
because they went through a lot of bullshit, but, like,
right.
ugh.
And it's also, like, when you think about, like, narcissists and manipulators, they start really small. So something
Mhm.
that's innocuous, something that doesn't really offend the room, something that's not gonna, like, go crazy because they're testing boundaries.
Yes,
This was
exactly, and
the
that's what
first
he's doing.
boundary he was testing.
Mhm, mhm. He was very strategic with being like, "What can I get away with
Oh,
my with my
for
team?"
fucking sure.
Because Dan was very much he was a writer himself, so he was very much involved with them. He was always with them, always having meetings and stuff. They said, at first it was fine, just like with, all that, like, it was fine. It was still fine at this point because he hadn't found the level of fame he gets yet. And then we run into another problematic thing that Dan created himself. And this makes me so sad because I thought I loved this character when I was a kid because, like, obviously I didn't fucking
Mhm.
know. It's
Right.
Penelope Taint, adults. You already know. I don't have to say
Yeah.
anything about, like, what's wrong with that.
And I didn't know that her name was Taint. I thought her name was Tate.
Ah,
Like, because Tate is a name. So
yeah.
I always thought they were saying Penelope Tate.
And see, I bet a lot of people thought that. I feel like I might have
Mhm,
thought that too, because I think I thought that when I first watched it. Obviously,
mhm.
second time you already know, but
Yeah,
that's the thing because it's one of those things that if a kid's saying it, a lot of kids probably did say Tate. Like, let's be real. But somebody decided to be like, Dan, what is this? And he was like, like like it's tainted. That's what he tried to say. But like all his writers knew
right,
he told them he was like, if they ask, that's not what I mean. Even though he's like, but that's
right,
what I mean. Just don't tell
right.
anybody.
It's that
Like keep it a
wordplay.
secret.
It's a double
Mhm.
entendre. It's, ooh, like, we're saying taint as in, like, the body part, but, like, it's not. It's tainted,
Mhm.
and which makes sense when you think about the character because, like, all of her interactions with Amanda, even though she is Amanda, like,
Yeah.
are these, like, troublesome and everything kinda gets tainted, right? Like, everything is
Exactly.
bad. So it's
Exactly.
like, you can really spin it,
Mhm.
but, like, there's a dirty joke in there. And I get it, like, I when we watch back kids movies, there's always some sort of weird shit in there that's, like, adult.
Yeah.
But, like, Dan loved to push boundaries.
Very much so. And he started kind of like leaning into the pranks and jokes and stuff to test these boundaries. So,
Mhm.
one of the things he did, which I'm like, oh my God, how fucking obnoxious. He would IM people and be like, you need to yell hammers or you need to yell this. He would do that. And then Jenny said, like, if you tried to ignore his message, he would just like over and over and like he'd spam you. He'd spam you till you did it. It escalated to I'm an idiot, slut, and other like derogatory phrases and stupid shit to make people feel like dumbasses. And it was usually the women. And oh my God, this made my stomach hurt. So Christie talks about how there was an instance where he said, I'll give you $300 to eat 2 pints of ice cream in 30 minutes. She threw up after. I'm like, no shit. But she was like, I was broke. I needed that money. So I was
She's
like, "Bet."
sharing a salary.
Literally, like, I don't even, oh my God, I
It's
can't
like
even imagine.
two birds, one stone. She's getting $300 and she ate. Like, I mean, it's not good. And she threw it up. And also, like, that's some sort of weird fucking fetish. Like, you can't tell me that him sitting there watching her eat 2 pints of ice cream didn't give him some sort of fucking jolly. It did. He was like, I like this.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Poor Christy.
Yeah. And it's like, obviously, in the moment, Christy is just like, oh, it's just another one of Dan's like weird fucking games, and I'm down. So whatever.
Because it was normal.
Because it was normal, because this was the culture there. No surprise, Dan never paid her. And I love how outspoken she was, because apparently they were in another writers meeting and there was a fly. And like anytime there was any things like that, he'd be like, oh, I'll give someone $20. I'll give someone $30 if they do this. And it was like, I'll kill the fly and I'll give you $30. And so she was joking, because at this point, like the environment wasn't quite hostile yet, or at least apparent that it was hostile. And she was like, oh, should I add it to my tab? Because like she was probably going to go kill the fly. And he got pissed. He got so pissed. So he took her into his office and he started like fucking freaking out on her and yelling at her and being like, are you telling people like I'm not good on my bets and I'm not good on this and da 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 and all this shit? And she was just like, whoa, no, I was totally joking. Like, okay. So that was, you know, that was a huge red flag for her. Now, with this, we do kind of bounce back and forth. So we go back to Amanda and the kids and stuff. Oh my God. And this is what like is crazy. I thought the Kids' Choice Awards was the coolest fucking thing ever. I wanted to go watch it so bad when I was a kid. I wanted to be in the audience and be there. Like it's kind of crazy looking at it now as an adult, because it's true. They say it's like it was a kid Hollywood, and it totally fucking was, because this was like the kid Oscars, basically. Like it's insane.
And it wasn't just like even though it was like the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards, it was like Disney shows and other show, like, you know, they show like
it grew a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, they show Chris from Glee. He's on there, and like Heidi Klum is giving him an award. Like it was a big fucking deal to be on it. And I mean, did you ever want to get slimed as a kid? Because I wanted to get slimed as a kid, because that seemed like the coolest. Like it was like, oh my God, you're standing there and it's a serious moment, and then slime comes down and you're like, oh my God, I got slimed. I'm so like honored.
Let me tell you a secret. That's not really a secret, probably, but like I like this is for everybody else because they wouldn't know. I wanted to be on Nickelodeon so fucking like I wanted to be a kid actor. Thank fuck I wasn't. I have enough trauma, but I wanted to be a kid actor so bad because, you know, same thing, like we'll get into somebody else in a minute. It's like as a kid, you're seeing these children and you're like, oh my God, they are having so much fun and that's their job. Like they don't have to go to regular school. They get to go do this. Like,
and even their school looks cooler. Cause it's like, you know, I remember on Nickelodeon when they would like do behind the scenes stuff and they would like take them into the schoolrooms and like you'd see like Keenan and Kel sitting at a table and then like Katrina and another girl sitting at it, and they're all just kind of like around the table doing schoolwork, and there's like a couple of teachers in the room, and it's like basically a privatized education.
Oh yeah.
But it's with your friends.
Right. And because of like how long they were working and stuff, they showed a clip, like they would only go to school like for 3 or 4 hours. They wouldn't even have to go a full day, you know?
Right.
So, like, and they weren't really
I was like, I want to go to school for 3 hours.
Right. I know.
Can I go to work for 3 hours? That'd be great. I'm just kidding. That'd be bad for my paycheck.
God. And now as we're transitioning to Dan having the Amanda show, like I mentioned earlier, this is the first show he's credited as the creator of a show. So this is a big fucking deal. And this is another thing too, like this blew up because it was so good. Like I used to watch Amanda show all the time. Everyone I know used to fucking watch it. Raquel, who was in like the beginning of it, she talked about how she's like, we became so famous. She's like, people would ask for our autographs. Like she talked about how people would come in before taping to meet them and all this other stuff. And she's like, I was 12 years old and I felt like a fucking rock star. And I'm like, as you should. But that whole pattern of having his favorites and stuff was very, very evident because it was the Amanda show. He prioritized Amanda over her and Drake and anybody else on there. And she said, you know, we knew right away that Amanda was the star and we were just like essentially supporting roles and things like that. It just, this whole thing is so weird. So I feel like Dan got mad at like weird shit. And I'm like, is this I was like, is this because the attention wasn't fully on you or because you didn't think to do it? So for Raquel's birthday that year, I think they were filming and stuff on her birthday or around
Mhm.
it. And they got her like a giant ass cake. So that way, like, the crew members, the kids, everybody, the parents, everyone can have some. And I'm like, that makes total sense. Like, of
Mhm.
course they would do that. Like, so many shows did that for their cast. And Dan got so mad and was like, "You shouldn't have bought her that big a cake." And and I'm like, "What? Why do you have a problem with this?" But I do think it is about the attention, and yeah, Dan's very much a narcissist. We know that. We know that.
Oh, for sure, and I think it also was, like, the fact that it was Raquel's birthday and not Amanda's birthday, and Amanda's the star. Dan was saying this, "The people I don't deem worthy of attention, we can't give them attention, because
Mhm.
then they're gonna get ideas that they're important." It's about putting them in their place.
Yeah, he's
But
fucking
also
trash.
she was 13,
I
which is like a
know.
big fucking like, imagine being 13 and feeling so important, feeling so good about yourself that your coworkers like, think about like that, like, I didn't have coworkers at 13, that my
Yeah.
colleagues were celebrating me,
Yeah, and they,
and
like,
then to
went out of their
find
way to
out
celebrate you.
right, that
Yeah.
your like, think about it now, just, like, as an adult, like, if I know one of my coworkers were, like, celebrating me and then my boss was mad about it, I'd be like, "Oh, my boss doesn't like me."
Mhm. Exactly.
Fuck a girl.
And, yeah, it seems like she was aware of that, especially
Mhm.
after this incident.
Oh, for sure.
He just like decided to get full on bold with his stuff. So during this time, during the Amanda show, the success just keeps piling and piling up. So her and Dan become closer and closer. And they show a bunch of footage where it's like she's like leaning on him and like her arms on him and she's like hugging him from behind. To me, this looked like kind of like she saw him as like a father figure type of thing or like an uncle at first. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like it looked like that kind of thing, which is still not appropriate because it's like that's your boss. That's a
Right.
little too close, even if like
Mhm.
nothing malicious, even if it's just innocent, like it's still not appropriate. And he, as the adult, should have fucking realized that, but he loved the attention. So he's like, yeah, whatever.
It's still a
It-
big line.
it's still a big line. And another big line that was crossed. And it's crazy because I remember this scene. And obviously, as a kid, you don't fucking think about it. There's a hot tub scene where Amanda's like in her cute little bathing suit and like she's got sunglasses and all the other shit. And he's just like in his fucking clothes and has sunglasses on. Like, it's so weird.
Weirder that he is fully clothed than, like I mean, I
And
get the
she's not.
appropriate thing would he to like, in this scene would that he'd have some sort of shirt on, right?
Right. I'm like, why wouldn't you put on like, a Hawaiian shirt or like something like beachy or pool-ish, but like
I mean,
he was wearing just like street clothes. It
she
was
had,
so
like,
weird.
like, the umbrellas you get in drinks, she had those, like, in her hair, and she
Oh,
was all made up
so
to look
cute.
tropical right, she was adorable.
Yeah.
And so, like, the contrast between the 2 of them, it was like he was trying so hard to be like, "Well, I'm being appropriate because I am fully clothed." It's
Yeah,
like,
no,
I
very,
don't try like, it's like the overcorrection that is like, ew.
very skeevy, very
Mhm.
skeevy. And speaking of skeevy, he got really bold and he started having fucking porn right on his computer that people could fucking see, which means children could see. And children probably did see. Let's be real. And one of his favorite things to do was ask his female staff from different departments to give him massages while on set.
So gross. Just so gross. Just I don't like touching people. So,
Yeah.
the
Like,
thought of having
no.
to go massage my boss would be like I'd be like, "I'm done. I quit.
Eh,
I can't touch
ye
you."
Yeah, and he was very like, again, I don't give a fuck what he says. So strategic because he
Mhm.
told Jenny, "Oh," like in a joking manner, "Oh, I'll put your sketch in the show, ha, like that way if to cover his ass, if she ever reported it at that time, like he could be like, "No, she misunderstood. I wasn't serious. Like she didn't have to give me a massage. I was just asking." And it's like,
But she definitely implied that, like, he made the joke, she gave the massage, her sketch got in the show. Like, it was very, like, implied that it wasn't a joke, but it was a joke.
mhm. That's what I'm saying. See, he knew she knew it wasn't a joke.
Right.
But he did it that way, so it's semantics, it's semantics, he's covering
Oh,
his
yeah.
own ass.
That's the
Like, he is
almost
not an
perfect word
innocent
for
person.
him. All comes down to semantics.
Oh my god, I literally was horrified with this next story. So the next story was, one day, they're in the writing room, all of them, And for some reason, they were talking about high school. I think I don't know if it was just like random or they were like talking about like transitioning Amanda to high school. I can't remember. But basically, out of nowhere, he's like, you know what would be funny? If you bend over this desk and act like you're getting sodomized and tell that story. Like, what the fuck?
It happened to Christy, but when Jenny was talking about it, it was like she was saying it was like almost like, was this a fucking fever dream? One, I was like, that is, you can't tell me that he's not some sort of predator when she's retelling a high school story and he's like, bend over and pretend you're being sodomized from the back because I want this to be sexual and I want to hear your coming of age story while you're being sodomized.
It's so disturbing. Like, how can you think that's okay to do to somebody, to your subordinates, to do it all?
I mean, this is no justification. I want to make no mistake that I do not agree with this. But in Dan's mind, I've done all this other shit and I haven't got caught. There's no fucking way these two women are going to tell on me. All of the men in the room seem to think it's funny. So I have, like, it's basically, I have free reign. No one's going to come at me. I can, and this is like, I just think about the power he had in that moment when he's asking her to do this and she's doing it. So not only is he getting off sexually because of the fact that she's probably making sexualized noises, because how else are you going to, you know, relay this type of act? The fact that it's also a power trip, like I made her do that and there was nothing she could fucking do about it in the moment.
Exactly.
So gross.
He had that theme of there's a girl in the room who can't joke around. She's killing the vibe. If you don't go along with it, you're, you know, you're not whatever the fuck, you know, you're not a down ass girl, like blah, blah, blah. And it's just like disgusting.
I would rather not be a down ass girl. I
Never
want to
would
be
want
the
that.
annoying asshole who's like, oh no, I will not do that. You can quietly and kindly fuck off.
Which, go Jenny. Jenny knew this was all fucking horseshit because she went to the Writers Guild and was like, hey, question, and told them about the salary thing. And they were like, that's illegal, first of all. Like, no, he cannot be doing that. And so she told Christy, she was like, hey, FYI, they're going to try to figure this out for us. And so she was probably like, cool, awesome. Like, they'll talk to Dan and they'll figure it out, whatever. No, this was bad. So Dan calls Jenny at home and starts threatening her and being like, are you conspiring against me? Are you conspiring against the company? Somebody told about your salaries and all this other shit and da-da-da-da-da. And of course, she's not stupid. She's going to be like, no, I didn't talk to anybody, you know, type of thing. And he's like, well, if you did, I'm going to get you fired. I'm going to fire you and blacklist you, not only from Nickelodeon, but also from Viacom, which was like the huge other like production company besides Disney at the time. Like they did a bunch of movies and stuff. I think that's like who did like the Mary-Kate and Ashley movies. I want to say maybe. So yeah, it was really, really bad. So Jenny's just like, I'm going to keep the shit to myself. And yeah, Dan is very like erratic. He would go from like super, super nice to like an asshole, as we have seen. So it's very much like very two-faced. And he would flip like super instant too. So it's just like very, you know, unpredictable and scary. And oh my God, I'm sure you can relate to this. So Christy gets fired for taking 2 different instances. And I know at least one was on a weekend for her to go do something like personal. Like one was a wedding. She went to a wedding.
Right. Tara's
like,
saying this because I did this literally at my last job. Tara and I got invited to the premiere of Forensic Files 2. And then I came back to work. Tara and I both got like really fucking sick. Like I worked being really sick, literally felt like I was dying. And then I called out, like, I was like, hey guys, I can't, like, because of how sick I'm feeling. And like, this was at the beginning of COVID. I was like, I don't feel comfortable being around you guys. So I'm just going to call in for our staff meeting. My boss let me go the next day. And one of the things that she said was, I just don't feel like you're as serious about our job because of your podcast. And I was like, I'm allowed to take fucking time off. It's like, it's the rules. You have PTO. It's legal for me to take time off. You could have been like, if it was, because here's the thing, your boss could say that if it's for the detriment of the business, they could say, hey, you can't take this time off because of like a big work event. Like I have a big event coming up on the 10th. I can't be like, hey, I'm taking the 10th off. My boss would be like, you know, right? And that's not what was happening. And so I felt like I was being, basically my boss was mad at me because of the fact that like I had something else going on in my life that didn't evolve around her.
And that's exactly what happened to Christy. So he fired her when there was only 3 days left of the season to work. And things do not get better. Things continue to get worse. So Jenny comes back for season 2, but there's a catch. So it was like a total of 27 weeks. And he said, well, for the budget, you're going to have to work 11 of those weeks free. Sorry. Like, don't know what to tell you. Like, that's all the money we have. But plot twist, he brings in someone who was not on the previous season and was brand new to like
The industry,
writing
yeah.
and stuff in the industry. And he got paid more. That's what it comes down to. He got fucking paid more. Jenny is like, what the fuck? You know,
Right.
I would definitely be like, what the fuck? And the last straw for her, which I'm like, good for you for fucking leaving. They're like having a conversation about like an episode or something. And he's like, didn't you do phone sex? Weren't you a phone sex operator? And just like kept bringing it up. And she was like, what the fuck? No, what are you talking about? And like tried to change the subject. And he just kept on and on. And that was just like, that was it. She was like, you know what? Fuck y'all. I'm leaving. Peace. And she fucking quit. She left and quit, which good for fucking her.
I mean, can you imagine being in the middle of like a business meeting? Like that's what it is. It's a business meeting. You're pitching,
Well,
you're
yeah.
fucking like you're doing your job, you're pitching your sketches, and then your boss is like, wait a second, didn't you used to be a phone sex operator? I'd be like, what does that have to do with anything? And also, that's not appropriate.
No.
Even
And
if she had,
also-
who the fuck cares?
Right. And also, like, the whole setup of leading up to this was weird. So, like, he brought in all the male writers first. Jenny was the only female at the time and left her out. And then that's when he brought her in. And they were all in there fucking, again, watching this. So I don't blame her for walking out. I would have too.
I know what it feels like to be the, like, oh, it's if it's not me, it's you type picked on by a boss. Previous boss is who I'm referring to. And I think in that moment she realized like, shit, there's no other me in this situation.
There's no buffer.
It's just me all season long. And 11 of those weeks, I'm gonna get harassed for free. That's what it was. I'm gonna get harassed for fucking free.
Yep. So she said, fuck you, Dan. And then she lawyered up and she sued Dan for gender discrimination, hostile work environment, and harassment. And this led to, of course, an internal investigation. And she settled and got some kind of payout. But this ended her career in the entertainment industry, sadly.
And I know that this, I think it was like only like $400,000 or something like that. But in the grand scheme of Nickelodeon, they could have paid her so much more.
Oh, yeah, that was pennies. And she should have got at least $1 million. Like, let's be fucking honest.
It's like 2002, 2000, it's during or like the early 2000s. So like they were like the Amanda show was bringing in like so much money. And just think about the marketing that went around that show. It was so much fucking money.
Exactly. That is going to go ahead and wrap up episode 1 of our recap on Quiet on Set. We would love to hear your guys' thoughts. If you haven't watched it, it's just going to get worse. It's just going to get worse, unfortunately. But with that, we're going to go ahead and sign off, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Toodles.